Tonight, House of Representatives tells INEC not to disenfranchise eligible voters in the country and the forthcoming elections. Demands of the Commission embarks on physical registration of voters to make up for low online voter registration. Police Service Commission wields the big stick, suspends 2 senior officers facing investigation for drug offences alongside suspended DCP Abakiari. Protesting Uniben students for the second day running erect barricades on the Benin-Lagos highway as ASUU says it's ready for talks with the federal government. And United States, its allies and Russia continue to trade words over planned invasion of Ukraine as America doubts Moscow's claims of withdrawal. Plus, other international news from our London studio.
On business news tonight, the National Economic Council re-echoes NNPC's promise of delivery of an additional 2.3 billion litres of PMS into the country in 2 weeks.
And on sports news tonight, the Super Falcons are set for the first leg of the Women's Africa Cup of Nations final qualifying round clash against Côte d'Ivoire in Abuja on Friday.
And from Abuja, federal government admits that the challenge of out-of-school children is a national issue that must be addressed. Expresses worry that in Makoko area of Lagos alone, over 7,000 children are on the streets.
Ahead of the governorship elections in Ekiti and Osun State, as well as the general elections in 2023, there are more concerns regarding what the electoral umpire must do for successful conduct of the polls. This time, the House of Representatives is calling on the Independent National Electoral Commission to urgently deploy physical enumerators and other assistance to conduct new voter registration across all federal constituencies. Lawmakers are worried that the online registration process will not cover all the constituencies of the country. They also want INEC to situate voting points in safe areas only. Our correspondent Terry Kumi reports.
As political conversations become rife ahead of the 2023 general elections, members of the House of Representatives are concerned about possible disenfranchisement of Nigerians and eventual voter apathy which may be caused by the policy of the Independent National Electoral Commission on voter registration. The electoral umpire had put in place the machinery for the virtual continuous voters registration, but the online process does not seem satisfactory to lawmakers.
The concern that my constituency, my federal constituency, and many other federal constituencies have been placed at disadvantage position due to the non-availability of registered voters, centers, and officials, inadequate power supply, insufficient official tools and equipment, as well as inadequate enlightenment program.
Sometimes you get to a local government INEC office, they may have just 1 or 2 laptops to take care of maybe up to 250 units. And they are not able to do this. And people sit there every day waiting and nothing happens.
It has spoken directly to the concerns we have about registration. It is a motion also that seeks to address some of the deficiencies and major concerns of our electoral procedures and our voting system.
Amendments are then made to the motion to expand its scope.
To urge INEC to please ensure that introduced voting points are located in secured centers. There will be no need to introduce a voting point at the junction of a road where we don't even have enough security personnel on an election day.
There's a time frame INEC has put in for registration. And my amendment is that INEC extend the time frame for voters' registration, because online registration alone is not capturing most Nigerians.
Meanwhile, the House, through a motion, is urging the federal government to provide body cameras for all security operatives on duty across the country. This, according to the House, will address allegations of harassment, extortion, and extrajudicial killings of citizens by security operatives, as well as protect them. Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
Staying with the legislature, the central bank is kicking against plans by the Senate to enact a new anti-money laundering law without the required amendments on the existing Money Laundering Prevention Act 2011. The Apex Bank put forward this position during a public hearing by the Senate Joint Committees on Anti-Corruption and Financial Crimes, Judiciary, Human Rights on 3 different anti-corruption bills. Our correspondent Linda Kigbe explains.
These are representatives of key government agencies who have gathered in this hearing room in the National Assembly to make inputs on 3 crucial anti-corruption bills. The Senate is working on the Money Laundering Prevention and Prohibition Bill, the Public Complaints Commission Repeal and Reenactment Bill, and Proceeds of Crime Recovery and Management Bill. To enact these important legislations, the Senate Committees on Anti-Corruption and Financial Crime, Judiciary and Human Rights is convening this public hearing to get key insights from critical stakeholders responsible for fighting financial crime.
We believe sincerely that the views and comments that will be canvassed during this public hearing will no doubt form the basis of our recommendation to the Senate plenary.
In his submission on the legislative proposals, CBN Governor Mr. Godwin Emefiele, who is represented by a director in the Apex Bank, says an amendment of the existing Money Laundering Prevention Act will better serve the interest of Nigerians than the repeal and reenactment of a new law.
The committee may note that where the existing Money Laundering Prevention Act 2011 is repealed, and reenacted, there will be a new legal foundations which will not have been assessed against the Financial Action Task Force standards. This opens the likelihood that the new law will be deficient in other areas, not limited to the deficiencies identified in the mutual evaluation report.
On the establishment of a commission to manage proceeds of crime being sought for by the Proceeds of Crime Recovery and Management Bill, the EFCC and the Office of Attorney General of the Federation have differing views.
We should remember the government white paper on the reduction of the establishment of new agencies. I don't think creating a new one that will manage the proceeds of crime is necessary.
We know that government is not willing to create new agencies now, but this one is not going to create lead to lack of funds for the country or consume money for Nigeria, but it will create revenue for Nigeria. It will block loopholes. It will help us recover stolen assets.
The Joint Committee has to collate the diverse views expressed during this hearing and come up with legislations to effectively fight financial crime in the country.
The Police Service Commission has suspended 2 senior officers, ACP Sunday Ubwa and ASP James Bauer, with effect from Monday, February 14, 2022. The suspension follows their alleged involvement in the current 25-kilogram cocaine seizure and transfer to the National Drug Enforcement Agency of the suspended DCP Abba Kyari. The Commission's decision was contained in a letter to the Inspector General of Police and stated that in accordance with the provisions of the Public Service Rules, the Commission has approved the suspension of the officers until the outcome of the investigation into the allegations levelled against them. The Commission also directed the IGP to note that DCP Abba Kyari remains suspended until the conclusion of investigations. The IGP is further requested to inform the Commission of the arrest of one ASP John Umoru, who is currently at large, whenever his arrest is effected, to enable it to take necessary action and to place on suspension Inspectors Simon Agriba and John Nuhu in accordance with the powers of delegation. We're ready for talks. The response of the Academic Staff Union of Universities to the comment by the Minister of Education in his reaction to the warning strike by the lecturers. The minister had expressed shock over the action taken by the lecturers, saying that the government was prepared to conclude negotiations with lecturers. But a member of the Executive Committee of ASUU and immediate past president of the union, Professor Biodun Ogunyemi, told Channels Television that ASUU wants the impasse addressed. He explained that the decision to embark on strike was painfully taken owing to the government's unwillingness to implement the agreement it entered into with the union. According to him, apart from the meeting spearheaded by the Nigeria Interreligious Council, the federal government has refused to sign the renegotiated agreement over 8 months after the processes were concluded in May 2021. However, students of the University of Benin today returned to the Benin-Shagamu Expressway for a second day in protest to show solidarity with ASUU. The outbound route of the expressway was on lockdown as the students called for action to end the lingering disputes.
Day 2. Behind me, about 30 feet away, the barricades are in. The students of the University of Benin are beginning to muster for yet another day of the solidarity rally in support of ASUU in the course between the ASUU and the federal government. Benin-Lagos Expressway, part of it is on a total lockdown. If you look beyond my right shoulder, you'll see vehicles passing through. Now that's supposed to be the inbound route into Benin City from Lagos. But right now, all the vehicles are making do with that particular lane.
What did they happen for this route? We don't understand. They all block everywhere. Now, they go also they burn tire for there. They disturb everybody. When they drive back, they pass there. They drive motor. They pursue us. They go back with wood, everything. No road for us to pass.
This road is usually one road that carries a lot of traffic on a daily basis. The students say they are not backing down just yet.
Today is the second day of a warning protest that we have given to the federal government. We are supposed to be in class today learning, but due to the nonchalancy to the academic sector in the country, we are out of class. Today, an average politician has his children or his child studying out of the country, but we, as we are popularly referred to, the child of the common man, cannot have access to free education.
Through it all, the security operatives kept vigil, but did not interfere with what the students were doing. From the Benin-Lagos Expressway, Osaze Obaze Channels Television News.
In another development, the Nigerian Association of Road Transport Workers and the Petroleum Tanker Drivers Union have suspended their plans to embark on a strike. The suspension was announced this evening following the intervention of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited. The two unions met with the management of the NNPC, led by the Group Managing Director, Mr. Mele Kyari. NATO had last week threatened to withdraw haulage service, which should the federal government fail to address the rising cost of operation. Top on the list, according to the union, is the cost of diesel, which is part of the determinants of freight charges.
I'm happy to announce that our engagements with the NATO, that's the National Association of Road Transport Owners, the petroleum tanker drivers, and the National Union of Petroleum and Energy, Natural Gas Workers, NUPEN, this evening to review our current situation, particularly in respect of the condition of our Nigerian roads, which NNPC has intervened to ensure quick delivery and also completion. We noted the concern by our stakeholders, particularly NATO, PTD, and NUPEN, that there's any potential for misapplying the resources made available for any other purpose other than the one we have highlighted. We agreed to work together to ensure that we monitor these projects closely so that they deliver on time and on cost, and also to ensure that the resources available are applied for that purpose only. Secondly, we are aware that truck owners have issues maintaining their trucks, even acquiring new ones, as a result of the difficult situation of the freight rates that we live with in the industry today. We have agreed to work jointly with the authority being the primary driver of this process to ensure that those price rates are reviewed in line with the process that have already been put in place by the regulatory authority, and also to speedily go ahead and recommend an exit plan for government to to deal with.
In part two, after the break, Nigeria's economy on a positive trajectory as the National Bureau of Statistics puts GDP growth in the fourth quarter of 2021 at 3.9%. Do join us again. Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. House of Representatives wants INEC to register more eligible voters ahead of the 2023 elections. Police Service Commission suspends 2 senior officers being investigated for drug offences alongside suspended DCP Abakiari. Protesting Uniben students block Benin-Lagos highway for the second day running, just as ASUU says it's ready for talks with the federal government. And the United States, its allies and Russia continue to trade words over planned invasion of Ukraine as America doubts Moscow's claims of withdrawal. Nigeria's gross domestic product grew by 3.9% in the fourth quarter of 2021, sustaining a positive trajectory, according to the National Bureau of Statistics. The Statistician General of the Federation, Mr. Simon Harry, who was speaking at a news conference in Abuja, explained that the annual GDP growth rate stood at 3.4%, while aggregate GDP came to 49.2 trillion naira compared to the 43.2 trillion naira gained in the fourth quarter of 2020. Fastest growing sectors during the fourth quarter, according to the NBS, include transportation, coal mining, and the metals subsector.
For the second time this week, the Statistician General of the Federation is leading top officials of the National Bureau of Statistics to brief journalists on how the nation's gross domestic product fared in the fourth quarter of 2021.
For us to fix.
The GDP, according to the Bureau, grew by 3.9%, slowing from a growth of 4.03% in the third quarter.
The presence of the media.
This follows a gradual recovery after the adverse effects of COVID-19 on the economy.
In the last 5 quarters, the steady progress made in stemming the COVID-19 pandemic and the associated negative impact on the livelihood, the well-being, and the economy generally. Globally, many countries have witnessed an improvement in economic performances compared to 2022, when COVID-19 was so endemic. And thus, economic recovery is a gradual process that requires consistent collective efforts to improve economic activities across the institutional sectors, such as the household, the non-profit institutions serving households, the financial corporations, the non-financial corporations, and the government.
And then he briefs on sector-by-sector contribution to the GDP rate. The oil sector, for instance, contributed 5.2% in the fourth quarter. The non-oil sector, on the other hand, recorded a growth rate of 4.7% in terms, showing an improvement of 1.6% recorded in the fourth quarter of 2020. The fastest growing sectors for the fourth quarter include transportation and storage, mining and quarry, financial and insurance sector. The agri sector, on the other hand, grew by 3.5%, showing an improvement compared to the 3.4% recorded in the fourth quarter of 2020, thanks to the government's intervention in the agricultural sector.
Also, while air, rail, road transport witnessed high demand during the fourth quarter of 2021 due to the festive season and indeed easing of travel restrictions, the growth of financial institutions was driven principally by the volume of deposits and interest in deposit received. In addition, there was an improvement in water supply, sewage, waste management, and remediation during the quarter under review. On the other hand, the poor performance of oil was due to operational challenges and indeed insecurity coming from pipeline vandalism.
With this positive outlook, more economic recovery is expected for the first quarter of 2022 and later in the year as the government looks at how to fund sectors that will drive the much-needed growth.
Let's take a further look at the GDP figures released by the NBS. Joining me now live from our studio in Abuja is a development economist, Professor Ken Ige. Professor Ken, thank you for joining me on the News at 10. What is your impression of the latest GDP?
Thank you for having me.
Great to have you here. What's your impression of the latest?
It's actually a good news.
Okay.
On many fronts, and there are so many components to this. One is that our economy is far more resilient than we all thought, and is far more diversified than we have all thought. First is the oil component of the GDP has consistently gone down from 9.5% to just over 5%. And at the same time, you have a very strong performance on the non-oil sector, rising to a contribution of about 95%. And the growth rate of the non-oil sector, gives us the confidence that if we do have exogenic shocks around the oil, as we always do when we go into recession, we are more resilient now that we are very, very unlikely to go into recession. That's one message. And if you look at the growth rate for the oil, it's just around -8. And then also when you look at agriculture, that's also particularly good news, because we've now seen agriculture, despite the conflict in all the 6 geopolitical zones, despite the fact that we are feeding 300 million people, not 200 million, because all the Francophone countries in Niger, in Chad, and all of that are heavily dependent on our grains. So despite all that, you still have agriculture outperforming the growth rate, the population growth rate, and matching the urbanization growth rate. So that's good news. So you see, it tells you how much effort has gone into agriculture from all these CBN intervention programs. Then if you look at the service sectors themselves, you see the ICT running neck to neck with retail, both at 15% contribution and at 5% growth rate. And even though in the whole of 2020, ICT has been around 15% growth, but now that it has come down, you also have to consider the impact it's having on all these other sectors. So the digital economy is helping drive growth in the financial sector. Of course, there is liquidity, including liquidity in the system, but it is actually helping drive growth in all other sectors. Transportation the reason why transportation is very high is because it was at the very lowest in 2020. It was over -34 and 36%, so it's grown. So there's a base effect in that. But I think I see more hope on what ICT is doing across the sectors.
Yeah, I noticed you mentioned transportation, and it's listed as one of the fastest growing sectors of the economy. How is this measured?
Well, there are many components of transportation anyway. You have the road transportation, you have the aviation. Aviation we measure from the traffic and also the performance, the financial performance of, and that has actually shown a lot in the international travel. We have recovered, and about 60% recovery compared to the global recovery of about 40%. So our aviation is doing well, although there's an increase of passenger service charge from 1,000 to 2,000. But that notwithstanding, the cargo has kept up. It wasn't actually very much affected by the recession. So that also has big targets. So if you look at the development plan has given them something in the order of 50% increase in all the parameters used to measure their progress.
Yeah, and you talk about, growth, and that's good news, to economists like yourself and to ordinary people. How do we sustain this so that, we're also recording greater growth even at the next survey?
I know, I do expect, in fact, I was expecting Nigeria coming through with about 3%. And this has confounded all the projections. All the projections were around 2.6, World Bank, IMF, 2.7, AFDB. Even the government projection, it has confounded everybody. It's done far better than we all expected. And it's going to start on a good, this first quarter will probably be over 3%. So we can imagine when we'll finish at the end of the fourth quarter this year. Is really going to be an unstoppable momentum. But I have to tell you this, more people would have died of hunger and starvation in our country than all the COVID casualties and conflict put together if we did not attack agriculture the way it is being attacked with the CBN program. And also, there is also, as you saw, the programs that are rolling out, 100 for 100 targeting production, manufacturing, and then the new one of the $200 billion for over the next 3 to 5 years is coming to the level of export. So I think that's transformational. When you add this with the infrastructure company, they'll be floated with 1 trillion heading out to get 15 trillion. That's transformational. The things going on now are transformational. And they are not going into the gutter to fight the political economy of the various sections of the economy. No, it's creating new opportunities. Wherever you go, new opportunities. 4.5 million farmers getting credit with no collateral. 5.2 million hectares being farmed. That is the pyramid. That's just a tip of the iceberg. We are fighting and changing the course of our history and making us far more confident of our economic future in this country.
And hopefully that will be more evident, in the coming months. Development economist, Professor Ken Ige, thank you for speaking with us on the News at 10.
Thank you.
Back here in Lagos, the state government has announced that 4Score Homes Limited, the firm developing the 21-story building that collapsed on Gerrard Road in Ikoyi on November 1st, 2021, will face criminal prosecution. It's part of the white paper on the incident in which about 50 people lost their lives, including the promoter of the firm, Mr. Femi Oshibono. Of the 28 recommendations by the panel, the government accepted 26 and rejected 2. Part of the accepted recommendations note that the developer, having been intelligent, is to forfeit the project sites to the state government in accordance with Section 25, subsection 4 of the revised LABSCA Regulation 2019. The state government says the other 2 structures being simultaneously constructed in the vicinity are to be demolished because they failed structural integrity tests. The white paper also frowned on a situation in which 4Score was builder and architect. For this, the company will be liable to appropriate charges instituted by the state government. The government, however, rejected the recommendation for the prosecution of the government officials that acted on the 2019 approval of the building, noted that it will first be done by the Personnel Management Board besides other recommendations. The white paper also recommended evacuation of all occupants within a 45-meter radius from the extreme boundaries of the blocks in the interest of public safety. For the full recommendation of the white paper, you can visit our website, channelstv.com. In the meantime, the acting chief medical examiner of Lagos State, Dr. Shokunle Shoyemi, says 5 of the 50 victims of the collapsed building are yet to be identified. The pathologists made the disclosure while testifying at the coroner's court sitting in Ikeja today. Still ahead on the News at 10, National Economic Council confirms that 30 vessels carrying 2.3 billion litres of petrol are to be delivered into the country in 2 weeks. We'll have details in Business News. Join us again. Welcome back. We head back to Abuja, where Linda's standing by with more on the News at 10. Hi, Linda.
Hello, Amarachi. And let's begin with the fate of some children in the country. The federal government says the challenge of out-of-school children is national, not only a northeast problem. This is according to the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Disaster Management, Hajia Sadiya Umar Farouk, who is speaking at the weekly ministerial briefing at the State House. She explained that this fact emerged from a survey conducted across the country through the coordinator of the National Social Investment Program. Our State House correspondent, Gloria Umezuke, reports.
It is the turn of the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development at the 30th weekly ministerial briefing at the State House. In spite of the gains recorded by the ministry, which includes catering for 1.6 million Nigerians through the National Conditional Cash Transfer Program, supporting 2.1 million trader money, market money and farmer money beneficiaries, the protracted challenge of out-of-school children in the country remains unsolved.
The out-of-school children, I will ask my coordinator to give us the exact figures so that you don't
quote me wrong, but there are over 10 million of them.
First is to make people understand that this is a national issue. Some people here, if you say out-of-school children, they think you are talking about the Almajiris in the north. Some people think it's actually religiously, it's just Muslim children. But I can tell you from the beginning of this program, we've established it's a national issue. We sent a team to Lagos. They went to, what's the name of the place again? Makoko. They met 7,000 out-of-school children, picking things from the dirt. The guy came shaking like that. We sent another chap to Jos. He came shaking also. We sent another guy to Enugu. And that was, for the first time, everybody realizing that out-of-school children is a national problem.
The minister equally discloses that there are now 46 million Nigerians on the National Social Register, and the conditional 5,000 naira intervention strategy to the poor and vulnerable, contrary to other views, has indeed assisted in lifting more Nigerians out of poverty.
When people say 5,000 naira, it does not take people out. That is an elitist statement, honestly. It is an elitist statement because we've had courses to go to the field, and we have seen these people that when you give them this 5,000 naira, they cry, they shed tears because they've never seen 5,000 naira in their lives. So it goes a long way. It changes their status.
The ministry also straightens out other concerns regarding the N-Power program.
Some people actually believe that after they have been attached for a year or 2 years, they will be given a job in the civil service. Some people think they will be given credit instantly after that. So there's a lot of feeling out of the young people that are being attached under N-Power.
So there has been some concerns regarding the N-Power program, and it's been a year and a half since the last batch exited the program, and the federal government is yet to engage new set of enrollees. Well, the ministry is now promising to partner with the Central Bank of Nigeria and promising also to place 300,000 applicants on a training program with loans provided afterwards. From the presidential villa, Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
To politics, some members of the People's Democratic Party in Osun State have called on the National Working Committee of the party to reconstitute the Electoral Committee, which will supervise the emergence of delegates for next month's primary election. They also want Governor Ahmed Fintiri of Adamawa State and his Oyo State counterpart, Seyi Makinde, to steer clear of the affairs of the party for peace to reign. The party members staged a peaceful protest in Osogbo, the state capital, calling for neutrality and saying that's the only way the National Working Committee can ensure fair play in the affairs of the PDP in the state, especially in the forthcoming primary election of the party. Meanwhile, Governor Nyesom Wike is asking members of the People's Democratic Party to avoid making disparaging comments against governors elected on the platform of the party. The Rivers State governor stated this in reaction to comments by some chieftains of the party on the possible choice of a vice presidential candidate of the PDP. On the Osun governorship election coming up this year, Governor Wike says he and other PDP governors will continue to insist on the right thing to be done, despite the criticisms against them.
I cannot be intimidated. The interest of Rivers State, the interest of Nigeria is paramount to whatever we are doing. Instead of you to allow the governors to bond, instead of you to allow the governors to work together, you are merely trying to divide the governors day by day, which is not good. Why do you spread such a propaganda that even making it look like the ruling party is using you? You cannot bring us down. We have only one governor from Oyo State, and the governor said, look, I don't even know what the party is doing in my zone. And the governor said, look, consult me. The governor is not saying, I want to impose anybody, but at least, as the only governor we have in that zone, he said, let me be consulted too. If you can make me to head an election in North Central, why will it be that I will not be part of what is happening in my own zone? The governor is not saying I must be consulted. And this is what I've always told people. Shey Makinde, a young my gentleman, said, look, my colleagues, I'm not consulted. And we said, okay, don't worry. Let's see how we can put the house together. All we want to win is to win Ekiti and win Ocean.
Away from politics, a police inspector, Ibrahim Isiaka, has told a Lagos High Court sitting in Atafawa Balewa Square area how the body of the former chief executive officer of Super TV, Usifo Ataga, was discovered. Inspector Isiaka, who is the investigating police officer in the case, told Justice Yetunde Adesonya that the body was found when the owner of the apartment, Mrs. Nkechi, came to report the incident to the division on June 16, 2021. He was testifying as a sixth prosecution witness in the continued trial of Chidinma Ojukwu, who is suspected to have killed Mr. Ataga in a service apartment in the Lekki area of Lagos State. After his testimony and cross-examination, Justice Adesonya adjourned the case until February 21st, 24th, and 25th, as well as March 1st, 2nd and 3rd, 2022 for continuation of trial. And that's all from Abuja. Back to you, Amarachi.
Thank you, Linda. In other stories now, the Abdul Samad Rabiu Initiative has donated 84 brand new hospital equipment worth over 100 million naira to the Gwarinpa General Hospital, Abuja, as well as a medical laboratory and an ambulance to the Capital Health Surgical Center in Life Camp, also in Abuja. The equipment, a medical lab, are to serve the neonatal, pediatric, obstetrics and gynecology units of the hospitals and provide medical care to several communities. The Managing Director of Abdul Samad Rabiu Initiatives Africa Fund, Mr. Ubon Udo, says similar initiatives will be extended to other hospitals in the nation's capital.
The Abdul Samad Rabiu Africa Initiative is the brainchild of industrialist and philanthropist Abdul Samad Rabiu, who recently set up an annual pledge of $100 million dedicated to health, education, and social development issues within the African continent. Nigeria is to benefit $50 million yearly from this pledge, one of the largest private philanthropic givings of its kind by an individual in Africa. This time, the focus is on providing health facilities to general hospitals in the nation's capital, beginning with the Gwarinpa General Hospital, which services 9 communities in its axis. 84 different equipment have been donated to the hospital's neonatal, pediatric, and gynecology units. The managing director of the Abdul Samad Rabiu Initiative explains why the Gwarinpa General Hospital was crucial for this donation.
A million calls and visits, and when we saw the facility, we actually saw that there was merit to the proposal. And I briefed the chairman of ASR Africa, Alhaji Abdul Samad Rabiu, and like I said, once he hears anything to do with women and children, he's passionate about that.
At the Capital Health Surgical Center at Life Camp in Abuja, a takeoff lab for general medical tests and an ambulance are donated by the Abdul Samad Rabiu Africa Initiative. According to its managing director, 19 billion naira has been spent by the initiative on health alone in 2021, and more will be spent on the sector in 2022.
And assure you that I know there are a lot of other things we discussed, which we're hoping that we can also work towards. This is the beginning of a partnership between ASR Africa and this facility, and this institution. And I can assure you that we're going to be here as supportive partners in everything you do. Thank you very much.
The Director General of the Federal Capital Territory Hospital Management Board, Dr. Mohammed Kawu, extends the appreciation of the FCT administration to the Abdul Samad Rabiu Africa Initiative.
I briefed my principal, particularly the minister, and he directed that I should come personally and receive these donations with the management of the hospital, of course, the MD. So on behalf of the FCT administration, I want to sincerely appreciate this donation and thank the donors.
The Abdul Samad Rabiu Africa Initiative say by these donations, they're keeping their promise of unlocking sustainable development opportunities in Africa, by Africans, and for Africans.
Let's get some business news now. Here's Teniola Shibawali.
banking, so easy, so simple. Dial *894# now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Thanks a lot, Amarachi. Welcome to Business News. The National Economic Council has confirmed the NNPC's promise to deliver 2.3 billion litres of fuel into the country within 2 weeks. The spokesperson to the Vice President of Nigeria, Mr. Laolu Akonde, stated this today during the virtual meeting of National Economic Council at the State House in Abuja.
There was a presentation, made by the NNPC Group Managing Director on the current fuel situation in the country, and he did explain what had happened to cause the what he described as panic buying. Essentially, he's saying that where there has been a gap because of the supply. There was a problem in the supply, as we all know, due to the infusion of about 20% methanol in the PMS that was supplied to the country, which obviously, was not supposed to be. And he says that investigation is going on. But in the interim, he says that they are boosting NNPC, and people in the industry are boosting the supply of PMS, to cover the gap, and that hopefully by next week this situation would have been sorted out.
Pan-African credit rating agency Augusto & Co. has become certified as an approved verifier by the Climate Bonds Standard to perform verification of green bonds projects or assets in Africa. As an approved verifier, Augusto & Co. will assess projects' eligibility under the Climate Bonds Standard criteria for solar, wind, marine, bioenergy, recycling, forestry, as well as transport. Also, the ratings agency can help companies in Africa unlock access to local and international funding options. Nigeria's stock market made a U-turn into negative territory as the all-share index dipped marginally by 0.01%. Ini John Mekwa tells us more.
Well, thank you so much. Welcome to the stock market report. The market flipped today as the bear took over the floor of the NGX. Oh, marginal loss, that has not edged the market off the 47,000 level, thankfully, even though it's looking really close, and the market lost 4 billion naira today. Looking at the counters, it was the mixed color today. More than 3% shaved off oil and gas. Seplat lost 50 kobo, while Eternal Oil lost 11 kobo. Investors are still in a profit-taking mood, we can see there. But banking was on the flip side. It added 0.36%. GTCO added 30 kobo to its share price and brought that up. 26 naira 30 kobo was the closing price of GTCO at the close of trading. Insurance was also up more than 0.5%. Now, the activity chart is back in total red. Just a little bit of relief we had there. Value lost almost 2 billion naira compared to the previous session. Well, the week is looking like it's going to be a bearish one, but we still have one more chance. Let's see what tomorrow holds. That's the stock market report. I'm Ini John Mekwa.
And that's Business News tonight. It's back to Amarachi for the rest of the news at 10.
Thanks, Daniela. Outside the country, the president has attended the opening of the 6th EU-Africa Union Summit taking place in Brussels. According to the president's media aide, Mr. Garba Shehu, the discussions at the meetings are divided around 7 thematic areas, and the president is expected to speak on issues of security and peace. Financing for sustainable and inclusive growth, climate change, energy transition, digital and transport are among issues to be tackled. Before joining other world leaders for the opening session, President Buhari attended a strategic meeting of African leaders as part of his engagements on the sidelines of the summit. U.S. President Joe Biden and the Secretary of State Antony Blinken have both warned that Russia could be on the brink of invading Ukraine, despite Russia's claims it has been withdrawing troops from its side of the border with Ukraine, and amid accusations of a possible false flag operation in eastern Ukraine. And their calls follow that of the NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg, who had said earlier today that Russia may be attempting to stage a pretext for an attack on Ukraine following reports of shelling in the Donbas region. Simon Pusey has more international news in Around the World in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Ukraine's president has said that NATO membership is a guarantee of security for his country.
Slava Ukraini.
Inspecting forces in the Azov Sea, Volodymyr Zelensky said Ukraine sees NATO membership as the key to his country's long-term security. Russia says it is withdrawing troops, using this video as an example. However, a senior US official says contrary to this claim, a further 7,000 troops have arrived at Ukraine's borders.
Diplomacy has not yet spoken its last word.
President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, says the EU will remain vigilant until Moscow's words are reflected on the ground.
I commend the efforts of...
Meanwhile, Ukraine's military has accused Russian-backed forces in eastern Ukraine of firing shells at a village in the Luhansk region, hitting a kindergarten. Video released by the National Police of Ukraine showed rescuers, teachers and kindergarten staff leading children out of the building. The video also showed rubble on the floor of a classroom Ukraine police said was hit by a shell. The police said none of the children were injured, but 2 teachers suffered concussion. Officials now say that more than 100 people have died in landslides and flash flooding in the Brazilian city of Petrópolis. A mudslide came crashing down through this hillside neighborhood, wiping out everything in its path and creating a valley of mud and rubble. The city, which is located in the mountains north of Rio de Janeiro, was hit by torrential rainfall. Houses in hillside neighborhoods were destroyed and cars swept away as flood waters raced through the city's streets. Search and rescue teams are combing the mud for survivors. Brazil's National Civil Defense said that 24 people had been rescued alive and more than 30 people were reported missing. President Emmanuel Macron has announced that France and its allies in a European force will withdraw their troops from Mali after almost a decade.
La stabilisation de la zone des trois frontières.
It comes a day after the French president hosted a meeting with African and Western leaders in Paris to prepare for the withdrawal. Germany's defense minister said she was skeptical about whether a European Union training mission in Mali could continue. Almost 5,000 French troops are deployed in the Sahel region to combat Islamist insurgencies, with around 2,400 of those located at 3 bases in northern Mali. Mozambique's former president Armando Guebuza has given evidence in a huge corruption trial in which his son is also an accused. Mr. Guebuza, who is the first former president to take the witness stand in a court case in the country, defended his government's decision to secretly borrow $2 billion to finance a fishing fleet. His son is accused of diverting $500 million from the loan, which was not declared to the Mozambican parliament. A 35-year-old British man has been named as the victim of Sydney's first fatal shark attack in nearly 60 years. A friend confirmed Simon Nellis died in the attack on Wednesday. Police have not yet formally identified the victim and his family have not commented. Australian authorities are still searching for the great white shark, with swimmers banned from the water and most city beaches shut. It is the first fatal shark attack in Sydney since 1963. Investors are being urged to vote against a $99 million pay packet awarded to Apple boss Tim Cook last year. Institutional Shareholder Services said it has significant concerns over the size of the award, up from $14.8 million the year before. Mr. Cook, whose net worth is reportedly more than £1 billion, received the pay in shares, salary and for other costs. The 61-year-old said in 2015 that he would give away his entire fortune before he dies. And finally, drone footage shows a sea of lanterns lighting up a Thai temple to commemorate Makabuka Day, one of Buddhism's holiest holidays. 1 million lanterns were used, according to a statement from the temple in Pathum Thani province, where the festival was held. Makabuka Day commemorates the day when 1,250 monks gathered to be ordained by the Buddha more than 2,500 years ago. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel Studios in Lagos.
Many thanks, Simon. Super Falcons coach Randy Waldrum says his players are aware of the threat posed by Côte d'Ivoire ahead of the final qualifying round for this year in Morocco, as his side are preparing for Friday's first leg game in Abuja. Both teams will clash in the reverse fixture at the Stade Robert Champrou in Abidjan. That's on February the 23rd. A 10-man Abia Warriors held Rivers United to a 1-1 draw at the Okigwe Township Stadium earlier today in matchday 13 of the NPFL. Well, Abia Warriors were reduced to 10 men after Valentine Odo was shown a straight red after elbowing Rivers' Temple Emikai in the 35th minute of the first half. That did not deny the host from getting the opener 10 minutes later through Paul Sampson. Uche Nwawasoya levelled scores just within 9 minutes on resumption of the second half. In the UEFA Europa League, Ferran Torres slotted in a penalty to rescue a 1-1 draw for FC Barcelona at home against Napoli in the first leg of their Europa League playoff played this evening. Petr Zielinski had opened the scoring for the Italians after 29 minutes in Spain, but Torres levelled just before the hour from the spot after a Juan Jesus handball. Rangers stunned Borussia Dortmund 4-2, FC Sheriff beat Braga 2-0, while Real Betis defeated Zenit St. Petersburg 3-2. And that's a wrap on sports news. I'm Ayotunde Balogun.
Thanks a lot, Ayotunde. And the main news again. The House of Representatives today told the Independent National Electoral Commission to embark on the physical registration of more eligible voters ahead of the 2023 general polls, as well as the off-season governorship elections coming up in Osun and Ekiti states later this year. Also today, the Police Service Commission suspended 2 senior officers being investigated for drug-related offences, alongside suspended DCP Abakiari. That's it on the news at 10 tonight. Thanks for watching. I'm Amarachi Ubadi. From all of us here, it's good night.